digitaljamsessions.com. Hello and welcome to this Digital Jam session. Today we're joined by Kathy from Seed Camp and Emily from Moo, who are here with us on a very special hackathon edition live from the Acorn Inspirations Hackathon, which is a hackathon for young people under the age of 18 who want to start a new business. But first of all, what I'm going to ask is for these lovely ladies to introduce themselves. Why don't we start with you, Kathy?
Hello, thank you very much. So as Tanya said, my name's Kathy. I work for Seed Camp. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager. So my job is to do that for Seed Camp as a whole, but also work with our portfolio of almost 200 startups from around the world to advise them on their own marketing and communication strategies. Seed Camp is a first round fund, so we invest at pre-seed and seed in 3 different ways, and we invest in ambitious founders with ideas that will spawn the next load of global businesses.
Wonderful. And why don't you tell us all about what you do at Moo?
My name's Emily and I am a developer at Moo. I'm a full stack developer and I work across the whole site. Recently I've been focusing heavily on mobile and our mobile web experience. Moo is a design and print company. We focus and specialise in premium print products. Business cards are what people know us best for, and I've been there for about 4.5 years.
Wonderful. So ladies, we're all here for the same reason, which is that we are mentoring for this lovely event, this hackathon, which is aimed at young people. And I wanted to talk today about this notion that young people now seem to think that starting up their own business is actually a viable alternative to further education. And I think we're seeing that, we're witnessing that today in some of the young people that we've been mentoring. And I know that Emily has a great piece of experience to share with us in terms of the conversation that she's had with some of the young people here today.
Yeah, so we've been going around the room as mentors, talking to each of the teams and discussing what they're getting out of the day and how they're doing. And one of the last gentlemen I spoke to said that this has changed his life. He said that it was absolutely fantastic and that it had been a life-changing experience to come along and realise that actually starting your own business and going from a basic idea to a prototype to potentially pitching and winning a competition is something he didn't think he'd be able to do, and that this has given him an opportunity which has really opened his eyes to the future and what possibilities are out there and what you can achieve.
Which is amazing, thinking about obviously how that's impacted his perception of what he's capable of. But I wonder, from your perspective, Kathy, you work with a lot of these new startups, and I'm going to make a broad sweeping assumption, which I'm sure people will complain to me about later on Twitter, which is that actually I think a lot of these people who are thinking about starting up businesses now are becoming younger. There's certainly a generational gap in terms of the types of people who are just getting out there and doing it. And do you think that this is symptomatic of the fact that perhaps people do view new startup as an alternative method of learning to something like a formal institution like a university?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I think in startup at the moment, broadly speaking, there's 2 different types of people. You have your first group of people who went through university, maybe did a postgrad, maybe went to business school, and then they find themselves working for a big consultancy. So they may fall into a Deloitte or an Ernst & Young, they may work for the banks, and even though, that's quite a nice career, you get paid relatively well, you don't get to innovate. You have to kind of go through a big churn of a big corporate machine, and I think a lot of people can find that soul-destroying to a degree. And you're making a lot of money for a couple of people at the top end. So there's a big group of entrepreneurs that have come from that more corporate background because they wanted to do something different. And the thing for them, which a lot of other people don't have, is that because they started with a very good career, they have that financial backing behind them where they can step out and they can go into startup. On the other side, you have a new generation that I think following the recession and everything that happened realised that actually, why do you want to go work for a big corporate company? Why not start something new, start something fresh? I think when you've got people like Mark Zuckerberg, guys who started Twitter like Jack Dorsey, YouTube guys, you see them and you immediately go, well, they did it, why can't I? And they've built billion-dollar businesses that are employing thousands of people around the world. So I think there's a huge re-emphasis on being an entrepreneur. And whether you go through university and then do it, or whether you do it before university, it doesn't really matter. I think it all comes down to having the ambition and the drive to just want to succeed.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm finding at the moment. And startups, the majority will fail, but there are a lot of people that become entrepreneurs again and again and again, and
serial
they're the ones
entrepreneurs.
Exactly, they're
Yes.
serial entrepreneurs, and eventually idea 2, 3, 4, 10 might succeed.
I think it's worth noting as well that in the entrepreneurial mindset, failure isn't necessarily failure. Failure is a learning experience, which they
Huge
take
one.
to their next entrepreneurial endeavour.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, from your perspective, Emily, you work for somebody that might be construed still as a new startup, but most certainly went through that process. And so, from your perspective, what is it that motivates you to want to join a company that is a startup versus necessarily going and working for maybe a more traditional, larger corporation? What would be the thing that draws people like you to a new startup?
I think I was drawn to working for Moo. It was quite a lot smaller when I started, but I was drawn to it because the possibility. Things aren't set in stone, and I get the feeling, and when I talk to other people in startups and work with them, it's this constant idea of the sky's the limit. There is possibility, nothing's set in stone, process isn't set in stone. So your working conditions, everything from what you're actually working on to how you work, is changeable and adaptable and flexible. That's something I found at Moo over the last few years. Everything has changed, from the way our team structure works, the way our process works, to how we sit. We used to sit all developers together, and now we sit in crews where we have designer, developer, UX, marketing, product, everything. Everyone sits in a crew and works together, which has been fascinating, and it's changed. And I think what we're seeing today, what I've seen today when I've been speaking to the guys here, is that opportunity that there isn't a set career path and there isn't a set way of doing things. You spoke about failure earlier. A conversation I had with one team was that failure isn't the end, it's a start, and even if something doesn't work out, you can take everything you've learned from that and build on it. And as you said, Kathy, it might be that the failures or the experiences you had in your first startup help you succeed in the sixth.
This is very true. Now, I want to raise a topic that I know some listeners will probably think, oh no, they're going to go down that path. But I'm going to do it anyway because I don't care, and I think it's important to point out that both of these lovely ladies also do certain other things outside of their core jobs and their core businesses that are very worthwhile and very interesting. First of all, Emily, who runs Girls in Tech, and Kathy, who runs Geek Girl Meetups.
Yes.
And I am curious to understand, from your perspectives, what drew you to running and organising these two different groups, because you both pretty much organise for these groups, yes?
Yeah. So I think the nice thing is that ultimately Girls in Tech and Geek Girl are very complementary to each other. It's the same end goal, really, which is to inspire and get more women working in technology. For me, I wasn't one of the originals that set up Geek Girl Meetup in the UK. It originally started in Stockholm about 6 years ago. So I joined the girls in February, and the reason for joining was I went along to a couple of the meetups that they do, and it's just a fantastic energy. I've never been in a meetup or a room where everyone is so positive. Women in tech as a topic has such a terrible negativity surrounding it because of the issues.
Indeed.
But it's phenomenal when you're in a room and everyone's attitude is yes. And it's not about moaning. Obviously, we do have to go and have those conversations to try and fix things longer term, but it's more an actual celebration. It's getting people in a room to talk about why they kick ass and what they're doing, and get other women to be inspired and connect with them and just build this continuing growing community. Yeah.
What about you, Emily?
So Girls in Tech and, as Kathy said, Geek Girl, we worked together. We actually ran a coding weekend earlier this year, where we got 100 women in a room and had them do a Learn to Code course, with the hope that they'd be able to get some skills to go on and progress in their career or start something new if that's what they wanted. Girls in Tech focuses on inspiring and encouraging females in tech, but also encouraging males to look at the way in which their business or the people that they're interacting with and try and encourage women themselves to get into technology. We try and aim for at least 25% of our audiences to be male, because we think there's an awful lot of value in having guys come up and just see these incredible women on panels and say, okay, they are there. There's none of this excuse that, oh, we haven't got any women on our panels, because there aren't there. We want everybody to go back and say, yeah, there are. And I saw this amazing female CEO at the weekend talking about her tech stack or talking about a new company. And the reason I got into it was I actually went along to a breakfast meeting when it launched in the UK in 2011, I think, about 4 years ago. Girls in Tech launched in 2007 in America, and we've got about 50 chapters worldwide. But the UK chapter was just launching, and they had sent out applications for those who wanted to get involved. And similar to Kathy, I found that the energy was just incredible. Walking into a room full of men and women who were just so positive and encouraging and inspirational. And to repeat, Kathy, again, the answer was always yes. It's, well, I'm interested in going to this, and the response from everyone was, well, just try it, go for it, have a go. What's the worst that can happen? And that's something that we continue to try and push forward and try and encourage others, whether it's in mentoring or coming to events and just showing people what's possible. And that the answer isn't you can't do it, it's just have a go.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting this year in particular. There's a massive re-emphasis from big tech conferences on having more women in the audience. Yeah. So Web Summit just did Dublin, and at Dublin they announced that next year when they move it to Lisbon, they're going to have 10,000 women in tech at this conference.
I've had about 5 different people try to invite me to that.
Yeah, I've got my ticket.
Women are going, you've got to go. It's like, yes, I know.
Yeah, I've got my ticket. I know that TechCrunch Disrupt, which is coming up in like 2 weeks, really, really soon here in London. Again, they have another re-emphasis on more women in tech. And Tanya, we were at Apps World this week on Wednesday, and again, they had a big emphasis on women in tech. In fact, they had a hashtag AppsWorld WIT, and they had like Martha Lane Fox and Dr. Sue Black on stage talking about what they're up to. So it's interesting. You've got groups like Girls in Tech, Geek Girl, Girls Who UX, and loads of other kind of women in tech organisations, but it's for some reason this year it seems to be that the broader, much larger conferences are suddenly jumping on the bandwagon, which I think is a great thing, but it's just, in my own head I'm finding it interesting that it seems to be 2015 is the year to do it.
I find it interesting because I do think there is a cultural shift at the moment towards, I don't know if it's necessarily pro-feminism, but certainly being more aware and open to the idea of feminism. I think things like the He for She campaign probably didn't hurt in profiling it and raising it to attention. But what I do find extraordinarily interesting is that even here at this event that we're at, I don't know if you are aware, but there are actually 2 teams here who are completely made up of girls only. And that's really interesting because I know that 5 years ago or even 2 years ago, if you had turned up to the same type of event, you just wouldn't have found an entire team of girls who wanted to start up their own business or wanted to be very technical about starting up their own business. So I do think that there has been definitely some visible impact and change that we've seen that's impacting how young women and then young girls are thinking about themselves in that context. But I am curious to understand from your experience with Seed Camp, what kind of percentage of female founders are you seeing?
So it's still relatively low. I unfortunately don't actually know the exact percentage
because I'm just throwing these questions out there.
I would say everyone at Seed Camp would love for it to be higher. So I think there's a couple of different issues that are all connected to women in tech. So obviously there is not enough women in technology. If you narrow that down to women in investment, so women VCs,
it's very few of those.
It's really hard to find them. There are a few. You've got stand-up examples like Eileen Burbage, and at Seed Camp you have Reshma. But there's not. It's still a very male-dominated environment in investment. So female founders, yes, there are more and more, and there's a huge amount of profiling going on to get other people kind of up to that level and inspired and everything, but there's just not enough. I think there's a couple of issues that need to be tackled. There's get more women in tech, and I think getting more women in tech will lead to more female entrepreneurs. Because once you've been a part of a startup, it's much more likely that you will go and start your own company.
Yes.
You kind of feed off of that energy, learn from what is going there in terms of scaling up, and then you come up with an idea and roll with it. We have a couple of really amazing female founders at Seed Camp. There's, I'll give 2 quick examples. There's a BridgeU with Lucy Stonehill. So they just raised over $2 million to expand. So they're an education platform to help you find the right universities and go through the whole application process. And she's awesome. And then we've also got 3 sisters in Dublin who run this company called Love and Robots, which builds the most amazing 3D printed jewellery and like stencil designs and little bow ties for guys. It's really, really cool. So they've got a fantastic pop-up shop there in Dublin at the moment. So, we've got some really kind of standout examples, but unfortunately, we're still very male heavy, because I think that's just reflective of the economy and how everything is, unfortunately.
But I would ask you this. If we have listeners who are thinking about getting into being an entrepreneur or getting into a startup, what would be the advice that you would give them, irrespective of whether they are a woman or a boy? What would we say to a young person who's thinking about taking that step into, creating their own business?
Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
Yeah. I would say if it's something you're passionate about, you will find a way. The important thing is to have that passion and have that interest. And along the way, you'll find what you need, whether it's, I need to learn to code, I need to learn about marketing, I need to learn PR. You'll find the skills you need, and you can learn them along the way. It's just taking that initial step and saying, I'm going to go for this, I care about this and I want it to work. And then, even if it doesn't, you'll hopefully have picked up some really fantastic skills along the way, which will push you toward a future career or something else which will be successful.
Yeah. Okay. I think you just have to go for it.
Yeah.
There's nothing to lose.
Just do it.
Just do it. Like, literally, be Nike. Especially at this age, like, there is less to lose, almost, in some ways. I know if you were to kind of go, like, 20 years down the line, you could be married, have a mortgage and have kids, and therefore it's harder. You can still do it, but it would be harder. At this point in your life, the opportunities are pretty much endless. So just go for it. And that's literally all I can say, because like we said earlier, you learn by failing. And even though, most entrepreneurs, even ones that have been phenomenally successful, have built multi-billion-dollar businesses, the number of people that told them they were idiots or that idea was never going to work.
Yes.
You just have to prove people wrong, and like Emily said, it's about having that ambition.
For sure. So normally on a digital jam session, we would ask the question about what we think is the most significant change that's going to happen in your industries for the future. But given that we're here at a very special event and we're doing something slightly different, I'm going to change up that question slightly. And I'm going to say to you, if you were giving somebody some advice on tools that can help them to be more productive, or to give them the freedom and time they need to be able to put some time into a new startup idea or business, what would be the top tool that you would recommend that they use in their life day to day?
I think off the top of my head, while I think about which tool it would be, my initial reaction is to use your downtime. Make the most of dead time during your days. It's incredible what you can learn. There's so many free online learning tools out there, whether it's a language or a new skill, or downloading podcasts, or downloading PDFs, and just trying to learn a bit more and read around your topic. When you're on the tube, or when you're just sitting around, when you're waiting 10 minutes for somebody to arrive, that using those tiny pockets of time during the day is something someone told me to really try and use. And it's all easier said than done, but it's really amazing what you can do if you force yourself to make the most of every minute of your daytime.
This is true.
I don't know what tool I use. Trello helps me. It sounds silly, but actually, for me, one of the big things is organisation. I think it has to be the same. We've got 2 jobs effectively, and a sort of endless to-do list. So, actually having a visual organisation of all of that has made me so much more productive, and hopefully more successful.
Yes.
I am stealing that tip. So you know what? I think I actually thrive on chaos, which is terrible. Everything for me is pretty hectic, but there's a couple of things that I highly recommend. So my role is communications and marketing, which ultimately comes down to networking. So for me, when it comes to ideas and planning, it's all about just communicating that in some form. So even whether it's just turning to my tech guy on my team and going, can I just talk at you? I just need to talk at you. You can just nod. I don't care if you understand it. I just need to talk. Getting those ideas out there and getting feedback is an incredibly valuable tool. And it's not even a technical one. It's just having constant conversations, and that in itself spawns new ideas.
Yes.
So I would say, conversation is my biggest tool.
Well, actually, it's one of those things that people tend to forget, that with new startup and new business, a lot of people can be very protective about their idea and they don't want to share it with the world. And actually, you do need to get it out there in the world and for people to hear about it in order for them to be able to give comment or feedback. And I think there are some people who just are very afraid to let go sometimes.
I think that in itself is like an interesting point, because obviously I've met so many startups where they just like, oh, we're in stealth.
Yes.
Like, you can't say anything. They're like, no. Like, really? Don't want any feedback. Now, the interesting thing is, you think about the kind of the state of startup. There is probably about 20 people out there just in London or in a particular area of London all working on the same concept.
Yes.
The thing that makes it different is that person as an individual and how they're going to actually go out and make that a reality. They're all going to have a slightly different style. So being scared about talking about your idea is ridiculous, because you're all going to have a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
And you have to just go out there and constantly get feedback.
Yeah. I suppose that's one of those elements of entrepreneurship, though, is having confidence and faith in yourself to be able to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
But ladies, one of the things that we like to do for all our listeners is to let them be able to follow you via social media, find out a bit more about what you do and the organisations you work with, etc. and so forth. So, what would be your preferred social media handle of choice that you would like to share with our audience?
So probably my personal one, because if you go follow me, it will redirect you to 2 other places that you should go follow. So my personal Twitter handle is @KathyWhite10, and that's Kathy with a C and white like the colour.
And the number
and 10 like the number. Yeah.
Spell out or
10.
Okay, wonderful. And
mine would be, again, my main one, my personal one, because it redirects you to Moran Girls in Tech.
Exactly.
And that's Emily ATK. It's like Atkinson at the end, but someone already taken that, so
cut it down.
Me, Emily, and then half my surname.
Wonderful. And just in terms of the organisations that that you do things for, is there a specific URL for Girls in Tech and Girl Geek?
Yeah, so geekgirlmeetup.co.uk.
Wonderful.
And girlsintechuk.com.
Wonderful. And now we're joined by Elena and Mike, who'll explain exactly what it is that they do.
Hi, my name is Elena, and I'm the founder of Acorn Aspirations. And Acorn Aspirations is an early-stage edtech enterprise where we transform children's lives and turn them into entrepreneurs.
Wonderful. And Mike?
My name is Mike Butcher. I'm the editor-at-large for TechCrunch.com. We obsessively cover startups, venture capital and stuff like that.
Wonderful. So, let's give some context as to why we're here with both of you today, and that is because we are recording live this session from the Acorn Hack event, which is aimed at young people who have come together to create businesses. So they're doing a hackathon where they will actually have a viable business at the end of all this.
Exactly that. Yes, we have 100 children who have been put together with 20 developers and 40 entrepreneurs. And they're all literally doing that, developing products that will be tech businesses, and they will be turning into entrepreneurs within just 48 hours.
Wonderful.
Exciting.
Now, we've been here for the whole of this event, and some of the things that we've noticed is that actually the mentors that you've had as part of this event, some of them are not as old as one might think. They need to be for a mentor at a hackathon. So why don't you tell us about a couple of the younger mentors that you've had?
Yes, we have Luca, who is only 15, and he's been hacking for a long, long time, so he's very experienced in hackathons and has developed quite a lot of apps, and one he's developing at the moment is for the government. So he's very, very popular. He's only 15, and he was just very happy to come and mentor children. So in the past 48 hours, he's developed something that's already out on Twitter, that Mike would have seen as well on one of the Twitter feeds, and the prototype is already out there, and he was just very, very happy to come and do this for me. And he came with his friend Wink, who's only 18 as well, and he's also a mentor. He's teaching at Code Academy already at such a young age, and they're all self-taught.
Well, I think the thing is about technology is that age isn't a barrier.
Exactly.
You know, you could be 16 or 60, and as long as you can get your head around what's going on, then the world's your oyster. I mean, as Elena was saying, that a lot of these kids have been doing it since they were really young. And because technology changes so quickly, actually, so long as you kind of get on the bandwagon, as it were, and you keep developing, you keep your skills up, you keep up to date with what's going on and what's current, then you can progress quite quickly. The world of technology sort of 20, 30 years ago, where, you know, those green screen, you know, computers and floppy disks is all long gone. You know, if you didn't get on to work out how to kind of deal with Twitter sort of 5 years ago, sure, you can get on it now, but there are lots of other things that have happened since. So just being in the technology space for even 2 or 3 years can actually end up making you quite experienced. So age really isn't a factor in the tech community.
But we deliberately wanted to bring the younger generation as well, just to inspire everyone else, because everyone else is 16, 18, and the idea is to really show them, if I can do it, and I'm only 14, 13, 15, then you can do it as well. So they've been very inspired by this, I feel.
And do you feel, Mike, from your experience, that this is becoming an emerging trend, that perhaps young people aren't seeing university or further education as necessarily the next step that's needed, but more a case of actually being an entrepreneur and starting up your own business is a perfectly acceptable route once you finish school?
Yes. Well, a few factors have come into play here. There was the economic crisis of 2007, 2008, which really impacted businesses' ability to hire. People had to basically almost automatically become entrepreneurial as a result, especially students coming out of university with much less jobs. The other things have happened, such as coding has become more acceptable and more available. Lots of online courses and platforms where you can learn how to code now and how to be technologically entrepreneurial, if you will. And and a lot of initiatives like Acorn Hack, which is a great idea. All of these things have come together, and kids are walking around today with very, very powerful devices, which just gives them a kind of glimpse of what's possible in their world, and from that, and they can go from there. I think also, it's becoming expensive to go on to further education these days, and if you can make your way in the world and create a business and learn as you go, then that's often also becoming a viable alternative.
When you're judging these children who are attending the Acorn Hack, what kind of things are you going to be looking for? What kind of traits are you looking for in these young people?
Well, I mean, from my perspective as a technology journalist, we're often interested in the story behind the company, and we obviously see a lot of things all the time. So we have a lot of things to compare these two. But I mean, the idea is not here to sort of be harsh and kind of turn it into the X factor. The idea here is to constructively criticise and to also constructively encourage some of the ideas and the potential companies that might come out of this exercise. And allow people to sort of take the ideas forward, pivot, change things, tweak things that might not necessarily be that great an idea. And hopefully, because at TechCrunch we see a lot of things, we can say, well, hey, look, somebody's already done that, but maybe you've got a new take on it, and maybe if you changed it this way, maybe that might work, or whatever. And that's the sort of feedback we can kind of bring.
Wonderful. And I think, Elena, from your perspective, obviously one of the important things about Acorn Hack is that you're looking to make sure that there's support for these businesses beyond this event.
Absolutely.
What kind of support are you looking to give these?
Yes, absolutely. What I have been doing is I've managed to get a lot of companies to commit to mentor children afterwards. We have Code Academy, who will be doing free workshops and teaching children how to code. We've had some coding workshops during this last 48 hours that were led by KCL students, which was amazing. A lot of companies have offered support in mentoring support in branding and marketing. We have Will King, who's offered half a day masterclass to the winners, one-to-one, just with him, which is absolutely amazing. So for me, it's important that there is some sustainability afterwards. So the companies that we will have created today do not just disappear and forget about all this. We want to make sure the momentum is there, and we want to capitalize on this and ensure that they will all get the support required to accelerate them to the next stage. So we are almost like a teen accelerator, and we're very happy that a lot of kids have come and are very enthusiastic and really do want to carry on working. So it will be up to me to now find mentors from the network that I have already created. Stuart Nieblog said, just let me know and I will introduce you to whoever you need, and we will just make it happen. So a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of willingness. It's all about making it happen and really doing it.
Which is one of the catchphrases for this event.
Yes.
So I would ask you this question, which is, for those listeners who are listening to this, who are thinking about the idea of maybe starting something up or want to maybe explore that idea, regardless of age, what would be the thing that you would say to them to get them to just make it happen?
Just do it, really. What else can you say? Just do it. Just really find the courage to make that first step, and you will be surprised the amount of support you will receive. A lot of people, particularly the entrepreneurs who have already been there and done it, they are willing to give time. Don't be afraid of going on LinkedIn and literally asking people. Just as I've asked Mike Butcher to please come to my event, because you will be amazed by what will happen, the magic that will be created. Just do it, just approach people, and you will be surprised. A lot of people will be very happy to help you, and that's what happened here. I've somehow managed to pull so many people together, and I would not have done it by just sitting not doing anything. I was working in the past 8 weeks just approaching people, asking them, please come, it will be amazing, you will not be disappointed, you will help so many lives, you will transform people, you will make change, you will create entrepreneurs, and they will then create change for themselves and people around them, and they've all come.
There's a just to sort of back that up. There's a phrase used by a very famous venture capitalist and technology guy called Dave McClure, which is that the ideal startup is 3 people: a designer, an engineer, and a hustler. and in a way, in a funny sort of way, that's really true. If you're just starting out on your own, there are tons of resources online. And, the most credible being, of course, great media outlets like TechCrunch and Reek, of course. And
make sure you visit TechCrunch.
Other media outlets are available. Recode, VentureBeat, all those guys, great stuff. And tons of great videos online about, where do you start when you're starting up, and really lots of great events. And there are lots of free events now, actually, especially Tech City in London runs tons of events, Tech Hub, Google Campus, all those guys. So there's always lots of things you can do. You can network and find people to talk to. Obviously, it's buyer beware. Make sure that, you keep your head screwed on and don't sort of get lured into something silly, but yeah, there's tons of ways of getting into the technology community, tons of meetups, tons of events, and tons of online resources as well. So there's really nothing to stop you. And now often, let's be honest, we're living it's certainly in the UK and lots of parts of Europe, you can be supported by doing lots of these things. We're not living in a state where there's no sort of support for entrepreneurialism. So in fact, lots of big governments will reward people for being entrepreneurial and creating new things. So it's just a matter of your own enthusiasm and getting up and go.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, in closing, what we would like to do is to make sure that these listeners can follow what you're doing and find out more about Acorn Hack. So can you share with us your social media handle of choice or the URL for the event?
Yes, the URL is acornhack.acornaspirations.co.uk. In general, it's acornaspirations.co.uk. The Twitter handle is acornaspiration, or if you want to get in touch with me, if there is anything I can do to help, it's Elena_Sinel on Twitter.
And we'll make sure that is in the podcast notes. And not that we haven't already said that people should visit TechCrunch, but what would be your preferred method for them to do so?
Well, I don't mind.
Twitter,
probably the easiest, if you want to reach out to me on Twitter, it's Mike Butcher, just one word, on Twitter. And if it's interesting, then
in other words, no guarantees.
No guarantees.
You may tweet, but it may not.
Ask me and I will do it for you.
I will immediately check out who you are. Google, get the NSA to look you up.
Yes.
And
make sure you provide a reference,
etc. Call my CIA contact.
Yes.
But Twitter's a good way to reach out to people generally.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining us today on this digital jam session. And thank you for listening. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe and review. And thanks again for joining us on this digital jam session. digitaljamsessions.com